specifically, what are the steps that you can do to start a group as disabled individuals to literally change the face of America? So it's a pretty big claim, but let me kind of go through the basics of how this will work. There are groups of people that all share a common interest in America. And those groups of people who all share a common interest usually fall into one of two groups. The group is either is filled with tons of Democrats, the group is either filled with tons of Republicans, or there's a group that has basically both Democrats and Republicans. Those groups in America that have both Democrats and Republicans are a very big risk, the scariest thing in the world to politicians, from Joseph Biden, the president, all the way down to the lowest of the low level individuals that are running for office. So, what do we intend to do here? We intend to go ahead and create a group of disabled individuals, a nonprofit, that helps guide the knowledge base of people towards those politicians that are going to pass legislation that will increase disability benefits to a much higher amount, limiting all the restrictions, increasing the benefits. That's what we're shooting for. I know a lot of people don't know how to do this. So, what I'm going to be doing is giving you exactly the stuff that you need to know how to go forward and basically create one of these groups. I have agreed to help with counsel. I have agreed to help with building the website. I have agreed to help in general. I have agreed not to lead it because I won't. I won't do it. I have too much going on in my life right now. I already go to bed at like 2 a.m. and then I have to wake up at 8. So let's go ahead and begin. That's on the days that are regular ones. There's other days where I have to wake up super early. So here we go, guys. Here is the timeline of how you create a group that would change the election process. And what do I mean by that? There's 8 million people in SSI, 8.2, 8.3 million people in SSDI. You combine that, you got 16 million people. 16 million people would every single time change the vote for president, change the vote for the highest people in the Senate and the highest people of the House. Think about that. You would be the disabled caucus. Think about that. Just think about that. Having more power than every other group out there, because your 16 million votes would go to a particular candidate at every level, not just president, not just House, not just Senate, at every level. All right. So what I'd like to do is basically begin. I see Mr. Passau. I see Joanne Leons. I see a Cat's Meow. Or actually, the first name, Mahaya Passau. Anyway, help me with that name. If you get a chance to kind of spell it out as to how I can pronounce it properly, that'd be perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and begin. How do you do this? So the first thing you have to do is have a name. And we've had a lot of cool names pop up, but nobody's really chosen one and said, like, this is the name, because we don't have a leader. But we need a name. We need a name for this thing, and the name has to be perfect. And the reality of the thing is that this name has to basically define what a lot of people are going to understand when they think of, okay, all the disabled people are coming together and they're going to vote. So for the purposes of this video, we could choose a different name, but let's just pick an easy one, because I said at the beginning of the video, the disabled caucus, right? Because, there's always different groups and they call themselves the caucus, but the disabled caucus. All right. Now let's keep rolling through this thing. Once you have a name, you need a logo. A logo is basically an image made in Photoshop, fireworks, whatever, that has a couple of things that it needs. First, the logo needs to have what's called a transparent background. That's where you have parts of the logo that are see-through. And that see-through area is called alpha space. And alpha space, very simply put, it just means that when you drag that photo onto some background, let's say that there's a blue background, you can see that blue background coming through that open space on the image. That's called alpha space. You get that in PSD files and PNG files, okay? Because they are not flattened. All right, next thing you need to know is this. As you go through, actually now they have alpha and JPEGs too. All right, next thing you need to know is this. We've got a name, we've got a logo. Now we need to go ahead and begin the process of picking out a website design, right? And the reason we're picking out a website design of what it's going to look like is that this is the figuring out what the business is model. A lot of people are like, well, now you need an executive summary and a this and a that. Blah, 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 blah. You don't know what any of that stuff is yet. Right? An executive summary is once you've already figured out what everything is, and then you're summarizing it down into this small little thing. That's not what you need. What you need is a website look. You're going to look up template websites. Some websites are built with WordPress. Some websites are built with Joomla, Joomla. Some websites are built with some other thing. But the point, I build websites in Joomla. But the point is this, very incredibly important. You need to pick out a look. When you have the look down, the name, the logo, the look, then your brain can start to see it. Some great creators think through music. Some great creators think through photos. Some great creators see through animation. Okay. You're going to have to figure out what this thing is going to look like before you get to the next stage. Now, once you have a template website of what this thing is going to look like, then you're going to focus very specifically on, okay, now that I have this, what's going to be in it? Well, you want to have a great voting platform in it so that members can go ahead and vote through the website, make it simple, make it streamlined. You're going to want to have contact sections. You're going to want to have update areas on what politicians are offering and who are the ones to potentially vote for per each state and at the federal level. You're going to want to do all these things in the website so that people know what the Disabled Caucus is about. This nonprofit is start to shape up. You're going to start to see what it's all about with its creation. So let's summarize. We get a name, we get a logo, we pick out a website template, and then we start to fill in that website with what it's going to look like. Websites are always built in a modular fashion, right? There's the big slider at the top where images slide by, or an animation of a video or whatever. And then you get to things that are important, like the stuff that's being sold, or things that people could do, right? And then you get to the more nitty-gritty stuff, and then you get to the contact information. You're going to go ahead and look at that stuff and study what these websites have and what they look like. Look at other nonprofits, see what they have to offer, etc. Okay. All right. Will there be dues? I don't think there should be dues. I think this should be free to everybody. To be honest with you, I think if people want to donate, they should be able to donate. It does not cost an arm and a leg to go ahead and put a website up. I mean, look, it costs, you get your URLs, right? So let's say that's $20, for the year. It's probably going to be a little bit less if you go through GoDaddy or whatever one you use. Then after that, you go ahead and basically you buy your server tech and your security tech. Let's say that's $250 a year for the server tech, yada yada. And then you get your template. I can always help you with that. That could be $50, could be $100, whatever. And then from there, you basically have somebody build it, which is usually the expensive part. The whole thing here is that, keeping that website afloat every single year might cost, I don't know, $250, $260, whatever. So it's not that much. And if you have a bunch of people that know how to edit the website and update it and things like that, it's, if they're donating their time, really, it's extremely cheap to just keep this thing up and running. So my point is this. I would like you to understand that the future of this is going to be an online system. There probably will never be a building somewhere where people meet, because there's no point to have a building anywhere where people meet. It can be all done through voting and understanding, Zoom sessions and all that stuff. All right. So the next stage after that is to essentially go ahead and begin the process of filing with the IRS for a nonprofit. So you've got your name, you open a bank account, right? You got to open a bank account somewhere in there, and then you go ahead and begin the process for filing for your nonprofit status. So once you file for your nonprofit status, you wait 1,000 years for them to go ahead and grant it. And if they give you hell, like they do with me with spaceconstitution.com, then you just keep fixing things as you go through the process. All right. So now we're at the point where we have the IRS saying, yes, you are a nonprofit. That's awesome. Or you're still before that and you're still working towards the next stage. While you're waiting to be found as a nonprofit through the IRS, you're going to go ahead and reach out to the state that this is going to be incorporated in as a nonprofit, and you're going to certify with the state, Florida SunBiz kind of gig, to go ahead and submit as a corporation. So now you have SunBiz validating you. The IRS gets back to you with some sort of, number verification process, EIN. So now you've got the state on. You take your EIN, you give it to the state. You have your bank account. You have your website. You have your legal documents. What are your legal documents? Well, they're your incorporation documents, which are essentially they're just documents that go into, how's the voting going to work, who are the members, stuff like that. It's not hard. I can draw it up for you guys. It's not a big deal. The next thing after that, now that you have your officers, now that you have your website going, now that you've got a face to the company, the next thing you're going to do is basically figure out how you're going to reach out to people, right? So you know that your whole purpose is to create a website that gets people to vote for those politicians who are pushing agendas to help the disabled, right? Sherrod Brown, right? A great example of somebody who wants to push through the Supplemental Security Income Restoration Act. And then there's, of course, the SSA 2100 Act, all that stuff. So the point is this website will show people who are disabled how to vote. Now, once you get all of that done, right, it's about getting more people on board. And that's all about online sharing, marketing to other disabled people to join this group. And, you could do stuff. You could make, where there's like, people could win prizes for joining. They could be entered into whatever. You could do whatever, you know what I mean, to bolster the amount of people who join. But what's important is the education aspect. Yeah, the Social Security 2100 Act. That's probably the most important bill or act that's going to be coming out in the next probably month, because they just released all their financial figures through Steve Goss, the chief actuary of the SSA. And that act is going to raise benefits and also make sure that the trust funds make it to 2100, because we're in like 2021. We need them to last until 2100. So yeah, that's when you get into like Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, the other ones that people know about that I don't. I just signed up for Twitter today, or maybe it was yesterday. I'm not really sure. But the bottom is I signed up for Twitter and I don't know how to use it, but I've got this amazing person who's like giving me all these emails on how to use it and what to do. And I'm hyper thankful. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So yeah, basically the next thing is, okay, cool. We reach out to people who are disabled, and you have to be open to the idea of having people who are not just, who are disabled and not disabled joining the group. They're not just part of that core disabled group, but also that want to help the disabled. So you have to be able to let pretty much anybody in that wants to get in, so long as they're not hostile towards the group. You have to have some basic rules for how people are going to talk to each other and blog about particular issues and things like that. And it should, the rules should always be simple. Don't make them so that it requires an attorney to go ahead and, do an adjudication on whether or not some thing was violated or somewhat, make the purpose of the rules to be simple and understood. If the rules can't fit into 10 bullet points easily, then the rules are too complex. And the problem with complex rules is that, like the American government, the more power you give to them to restrict you and what you can do, the less people are going to want to be part of that group, be part of this thing. Okay. All right. So yeah, disabled caucus. Maybe that's a good phrase. I don't even know if that's a good one, but it's it's the beginning of the video it said. But the point is this: once you've got that going and you have members, then what you start doing is you start throwing events that give an award to some famous person. So like not me, although you guys are watching this channel and it makes me look somewhat known because I'm on TV, but like somebody that's actually famous. And that person basically gets an award and people can watch it on Zoom and stuff like that. And that kind of adds validity to the whole yada yada, where people will come and donate funds because of this award that's going on. And that person, like a senator that you're giving an award to, people will want to support that and will, donate money to the group, which will allow the group to grow more and do more things. Although this group really isn't going to need a lot of money, because I'll set it up so that it requires very little per year to actually do upkeep. All right. So, yeah, Disabled Persons Caucus. Yeah, that is kind of catchy. Yeah. But all right, so next thing is this: once you've started to throw these events for famous people, and the famous people win an award, and people are donating to your nonprofit, then the next thing that happens at that point is essentially you basically begin to get national coverage, or at least TV coverage, or radio coverage and stuff like that. So you then have to be ready to, provide articles, create writings about the stance of essentially, your group. And that's where you have somebody write articles about the future of benefits and rights to the disabled people. At that point, you're publishing articles online. At that point, you're basically pushing forward this agenda that, is for the disabled, to make the disabled receive better benefits to live a better life. Once you've gotten past that, then you go into media creation. Then once you're past articles and you've grown out of that stage, you go basically into creating commercials, go into creating like trailers, go into creating feature films on particular topics that help the disabled. Once you get past that, then you basically go into essentially creating a better existence for the disabled through financially assisting them. And the way you can do that is you could be a group that creates buys a big motel somewhere and then basically makes those rooms available at an extremely cheap cost, or it's a low percentage share thing of your benefits so that cheap housing is available for people. Once you get into that investment category, you can then really start to get into receiving funds from the government to fix or cure essentially people who are either disabled and not having housing, or people who are waiting to be found disabled and need to be housed. And then once you get past that, and you're starting to receive those government funds to go ahead and do that stuff, then you can start to get into fostering politicians that you believe can help push forward the agendas of making the disabled have a better life, a better well-being, etc. Like creating laws specifically for the disabled, just beyond more money. For example, it's a crime to hurt a disabled person more so than somebody else. Think of it as like a crime to hurt an elderly person is similar. It's a different kind of law than it would be for just hurting somebody that was like, somebody that's 25 or whatever. You could start to shape essentially what that person what that law should be for disabled people. Let me see. Rhonda Kelly, I have a question. Do they put disabled in jail? If they do, how are they treated? Yeah, they put disabled people in jail all the time. I see a lot of mental claims where they'll send the person off to a mental facility, then they get sent off to a different mental facility that's a little bit more aggressive. Then they go off to a sanatorium, and then all of a sudden they're sitting in a jail cell because they keep committing these criminal acts against other people. And obviously the person isn't willing to either take medication, or the medication doesn't do it, and they still do these things, the criminal acts, and then they ultimately end up repetitively in jail or prison over and over and over again. Yeah, student loans as well. I have so much student loans. Like literally, if you got rid of my student loans, in a year, I could potentially save up enough to buy a motel, a shitty one at that, but I would do it to allow people to be housed cheaply. But it's just, if you basically get educated nowadays, you live a life of having to pay the government in student loans. So yeah, a lot of work, Alex. You're totally right. A lot of work, but not impossible as a group. I want you to understand. Yeah, sweetie, the dog. And so the doggies are doing really well, by the way. Just a little side note, and then I'm going to go right back to what we're talking about. Although we've kind of finished the general lineup as to what you need to know to be able to do these things. But essentially, I want you guys to understand not just the basics, but I'll walk you through it. This is not something that is impossible to do. It's not even something that is really difficult to do. It's just basically something that's Shadow dressed up as an elf. It's just basically something that basically my mom and sister are dressing him up now, which I think is hilarious because he loves clothing. But the bottom line is none of this is really super duper difficult to do, which is why I need you guys to start picking a name, figuring out what you want the logo to look like. Pick out a bunch of logos out there that you think are cool, and then we'll, get somebody to create the logo. And then basically, the next thing would be essentially moving forward with what the website's going to look like. So we need a name. If anybody wants to come up with a name that we can use and say, this is it, then we need a name. So All right. Anyways, guys, that was a good introduction as to the step-by-step analysis of how you can create a group that changes quite literally how the outcome of every single election that comes in place. I hope you're doing well. Um, yeah, I like that too. Disabled Person Caucus or the Disabled Caucus, because that politically means a lot. It right off the bat tells you it's a group that intends to vote a certain way. Um, but anyways, I am in. I'm a member. I will be the president. Cool. Awesome. So email me and I'll keep a list of people who want to have certain particular roles, and then I'll release that on the channel. And then you guys can pick from there as to what you want to do. But you got to pick basically a name first, because if you pick a name, then I can help you out with buying the URL, and then I can help you out with basically putting it on a server. And then once it's on a server, you can pick out a website template, and I'll show you how to do that on the websites. And then basically, yeah, email is here. It's right here. So that's the email. And then what I'll do is I'll help you guys put it together, and then go from there. And the big focus here, guys, and it's incredibly important, is to do great things for the disabled. And I know a lot of that, I know that sounds stupidly simple, but you wouldn't imagine how these nonprofits get off track and they end up in the weeds of, oh, we have this option or this option. It's always really a simple choice. The right choice requires more work, more effort, usually more money, but that's almost always the right choice. All right. Disabled Lives Matter. That's good. That'll kind of feed off of the Black Lives Matter situation. That's an option too. Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, think about it. And then basically go from there. And then we'll kind of catch up and do that thing. So, anyways, guys, have a wonderful night. I will catch you later. Let me see if I can do another video tonight. We did one on the food prices before. Let's do this. I'm going to hold off on doing another video, and I'll do another video or two videos tomorrow. Okay. I'll probably try and do them a little bit earlier, maybe around like 5 or 6 p.m. But what happens is I'm on the farm right now. So when it hits 4 p.m., I stop working and go outside, work on the farm, and I'll work on that for 3 or 4 hours. And then it puts me right around here, 10 o'clock ish. So I'll catch you guys a little bit later. Have an absolutely wonderful night. And thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.